Hello, in this video I will show you how to use Procesio to monitor if a Nintendo game is discounted and receive an email if it is true. I will build a very simple process that use a limited number of Procesio actions. In order, the process will call the Nintendo API, extract the regular game's price, extract the discounted game's price, compare both prices, and if we detect a discount it will send an email. Let's go on the Nintendo US game page to understand the structure of the page. We are looking for deals. And we will pick a random game to see how we could extract the pricing data. I choose Monster Hunter as an example. You see on the game page that there are two prices, the regular price at $59 and the discounted price at $39. Let's inspect the source of the page to see what we could do. So right-click on the page and inspect. When inspecting, I am looking for the HTML code that is rendering the regular and discounted prices. Okay, I found the source code and could probably apply some regex or jQuery selectors to read and extract the prices. But I would like to see if I could find a better way that is not relying on the page format. Still in the developer toolbar, click on Network. It will present all the resources called to deliver the page content. Now I click on Fetch XHR since I am hoping that an API endpoint is called to fetch the game details. I am reloading the page to be sure that I have all the resources listed. As you can see now, there are many of them. Now I am looking for an API call that will return the game details. I have found one containing the word product. It is likely the one I need. So I will copy the response give in the developer tools and paste it in a free online JSON parser to check if it is relevant. If it is, then it will help to understand the JSON structure. As you can see on the right side of the screen, the JSON is presented in a more readable way. Now let's see if it contains the pricing info we need. So yes, I have found the pricing details. We can see both the regular and the discounted prices that they call the final price. Now, we go back to the Nintendo website to understand how to call this API directly in Procesio and then process the JSON response. In the developer tool, we click on the Headers tab to have more info on the request sent to the API. We see that it is a GET request, and we also have the request URL. If I copy and paste the request URL in a new tab, I can get the JSON response. So it will be easy to process it in Procesio. Let's go now in Procesio and create a new process. You can rename it by double-clicking on its name. Creating a process in Procesio consists in adding, configuring, and linking blocks together. They call them actions. You can simply drag and drop an action into the Canva. I am dropping the Call API action to call the Nintendo API. When adding a Call API, you need to create a credential even if no authentication is required. Here I am creating a REST API credential and name it as I want to. In the URL parameter, I will input the request URL found in the developer tool of Chrome. So I copy the URL and paste it in Procesio. No, I am cutting the latest part of the URL to only keep the main API URL. And I paste back this latest part of the request into the test endpoint parameter. It is just for testing purpose when creating the credential. As you've seen, no authentication is required for this request. Now that we have created our credential, we assign it to our Call API action and we continue its configuration. I select Get and paste the same latest part of the URL request in the endpoint section. Now I am adding a header parameter to receive the JSON response. The info is given in the developer tool again. The key is content-type and the value is application/JSON. I am now creating a variable to store the status of the API call. It is an integer. It is not mandatory but can help to debug. Now I am creating our second variable to store the JSON we will receive from our API call. The main idea is to process it in the next actions to extract data. It is a JSON type. At this stage we can save and test the process already to check if we are receiving the JSON response as expected. We must first connect the action with the start and stop nodes. Then we click on Save, Run and Check Instance to review the process execution. If everything goes well, the process state is success. You can have access to its variables. We can see here that we have correctly received the JSON response with the pricing data we need. Now we go back to the edit mode to add our next action. I will now add a JSON mapper action to extract the regular price from the JSON response and store it in a variable. I drag it into the Canva, rename it for clarity and configure it. As a JSON input, I select the JSON output from our first call API action. For the query, I have to input a string that will help me to get the regular price value from the JSON. To do so, I need to understand the JSON structure. So I go back to the JSON structure in the online parser and look at the keys that will bring me to the regular price value. At the root there is a data key, then an array of one product, then prices, minimum and regular price. So this is the JSON path that I have to enter in my query. I check again to double confirm and I am done with the query. Now I save the output of this query into a new variable called regular price. It is a float type. Be careful, sometimes numbers in JSON responses are returned as a string, so you have to select the proper type. Let's connect the actions all together and save the process. Then we run it and check its execution. We expect to have correctly extracted the regular price value. The process is successfully executed and as expected we have now the regular price variable correctly populated at $59. Now I go back in edit mode to add our next action to extract the discounted price. It will be another JSON mapper action, very similar to the previous one, so I duplicate it. I rename the action for clarity again and modify the query to point to the final price key in the JSON. Then I create a new variable to save this final price. Then I save and test again to check if we have now extracted the final price. Everything is running fine, and we have now both the regular and final price. Now let's go back to edit mode and add the final part. I haven't shown you here, but the Nintendo API always return a regular and final price, even when a game is not discounted. So we have to check if the final price is smaller than the regular price. It would mean that our game is on sale. So I am dragging in a decisional action to perform the prices comparison and take decision, an email action if the price is discounted, and finally a stop action if the game is not discounted. Now I am configuring in which condition I want to send an email. It is pretty easy here. If the condition, final price less than regular price, is true, then an email should be sent. Otherwise, the default path stops the process. Finally, let's configure the send email action. It requires to configure an email credential services. I am skipping this phase here since the Procesio's documentation is pretty clear about it. But let me know in the comments if you want a tutorial about it. Let's dig in the email configuration. I start by filling the sender name, then the email of the receiver. I have created a dummy email address for the demo. Then I configure the email subject, and finally the content. On a Mac, by pressing Command+I, we can include our variables in the content. I am adding the final price. Then I save and run the process. Because this game is actually on sale, I am expecting to receive an email. The execution is successful and an email is sent. Voila! I have received the email with the discounted price. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions.